What's happening, sports fans? Thank you very much for checking back in with three people who will pretend like we know anything about high school basketball on a season where there is nothing consistent to know about high school basketball here in San Diego.
It's the unpredictability.
Ooh, much knowledge from you, Aaron-san.
I had to throw away anything that I knew about San Diego basketball last night.
Look, I don't know if you guys saw, but even Google now is starting to spit back results about SFC basketball and their effect that they are having on San Diego. So since the holiday break, we have yet to be back in the swing of things early in the week. So we all submit all of our top 10 votes on Monday.
Which are now completely ruined.
So I almost at this point want to be like, can we do 11 through 20? That's almost where I'm like, we need to just come on here and talk about those guys.
10 teams.
I just did a top 30. So
I like that. I like Tommy's thing. From now on, we're just going to start the show with picking 5 names out of a hat.
Random names.
Quahome Park, Canyon Crest.
No, we good on Quahome. We can pass on that.
All right.
Look, that maybe what we need to really do is just focus on Aaron's knowledge of mascots. Aaron, who is Granite Hills' mascot?
Granite Hills, the Eagles.
There we go.
Wait, short question.
Am I flashing back to a joke that no one else gets? Yeah, fair enough. So look, this week, in the last 72 hours, SFC has beaten Foothills and Parker. Saints has beaten Mission Bay. And I'm taking your game balls. I'll let you guys kind of address this stuff. But so we're going to skip over trying to rehash any sort of top 10, but we're still going to talk about teams in that realm. So I mentioned a couple of those big games. Tommy, do you have some specific game balls you want to give out? Is it that Saints game mostly that you want to talk about their win last night over Mission?
I've been saying it. If you've been listening to our radio show, we talked about this a little bit. I was saying how they're the team that I think is going to make the biggest leap this year, and it wouldn't shock me if they won the whole thing. Then I went ahead and said I still think Mission Bay is a better team, and then they lost. So congratulations, Tommy. But it speaks to all of the those two strong juniors they have there, and they've been playing really well. So. I said this on the radio show too on Monday. This is probably the most parity we've had probably in any sport that I can remember in the last couple of years at the top. So it's exciting, and this is going to be a really fun playoffs.
Anything else game balls wise? I know you were highlighting some Sweetwater wins earlier this week.
Sweetwater scored over 100, so you got to mention that. And Taylor, the big man from A Country Day with a double-double.
Jason Taylor.
Last night, yeah. So.
Also should have been in the NFL Hall of Fame already.
We'll get that. Yeah, it's up for debate.
Aaron, game balls from you?
I went down and watched San Diego Southwest, which is, I think they're the top-ranked team in D4 right now.
Yeah, defending. You have to address.
And defending D5 champions, they look every bit the part. They played Holtville, which came in with like an 11-5 record, and they demolished them. We don't really talk about that team very much. Diego Edwards from San Diego Southwest. I think he's a legit Division II, borderline Division I prospect. Just, he plays so far down close to the border that a lot of people don't know how good he is. But he had a couple of spectacular plays, caught a lob in transition and finished it with 2 hands, came down and tomahawked on a kid. And this is all part of like a 99-35 beatdown over Holtville. So I want to give him some love.
Well, and I know that it's an analogy that maybe I have bled dry already, but to kind of talk about Diego and put him into perspective, Derek Carter Hollinger went from Division V to open division basketball in San Diego like that. So sometimes there are kids who just, through their own circumstance, are not available to go to an open division school, and they have to play in the hand they're dealt, and you dismiss them a little bit. You say geographically, division-wise, they're somewhat out of the mainscape, but you have to be like, not really, man. You would be an ignorant basketball fan.
Yeah, you just got to peel away all of that stuff and just look player for player, and he stacks up with the best in our county.
Yeah, and those are the funnest kids to watch come playoff time because you don't get to see these kids that much, and so you're like, are they really that good? And then they show up pretty big, especially in those lower divisions. I remember Vincent Memorial had a kid like that a couple years ago.
Fabian Arciniegas.
Yeah, that's who it was. Very good player. So it's kind of similar. Reminds me of that.
And Fabian is at a Division II. He's at Holy Names. He's on the rosters. I mean, that's speaks to the level that he could play at.
Yeah, absolutely. Any more game balls for you, Aaron?
Not really. I mean, I just watched a lot of basketball. There was a lot of there was a lot of parity in the scores too. I mean, in terms of like there weren't any guys like jumping off the page with huge games, but team performances. Obviously, Santa Fe Christian kind of gets the team game ball, and we're probably going to discuss them a little bit more in detail. But aside from that, just a really good week of basketball all around.
I want to just toss out the obligatory single game ball that we always have to give to Westview at some point during this season for just taking a chunk out of someone's potential. We talked a lot about Del Norte the last 2 weeks being a very interesting team with Alex Moore and company being as quality and developed as they are, and then Westview's like, nah, we're good. Trip you on the way up. They beat Del Norte. Poway continuing to look good with a win over Mount Carmel. I bring up Mount Carmel because you had a hilarious tweet about Mount Carmel was the last team to beat Torrey in league play. Yeah, that in 2012.
Yeah, I think 2013. I mean, the number one song was "Thrift Shop" by Macklemore. The number one movie was "Warm Bodies," which I was like, what is Warm Bodies?
A great movie.
I've never even heard of it.
Never heard of it.
It's the one where the guy was the zombie, but then he falls in love and it fixes him, and
It's the one where the lady falls in love with a fish.
Huh?
No, that's Finding Nemo.
What?
No, that's
But February 6, 2013 was the last time Torrey Pines has lost a league game. They've won 53 cents.
You know what wasn't a thing in 2013? This show.
Yeah.
Prep Insider had not begun yet. That's literally the last time Torrey lost a game. None of us had this job. Want to give a game ball out to Mission Vista. Have not talked Mission Vista at all this season. They got a win over Calvin Christian, and final one to Tri-City for a win over Maranatha. Maranatha always somewhat of a challenging team. Moving forward, you mentioned SFC. Let's get to it finally. What we want to do now is do a couple of discussion segments. We're going to toss up some game balls and have these two guys debate it. So my first statement is going to be, should SFC be the number one team now in San Diego County? Who wants to take this one first? All right, Aaron.
All right, so I've been given the obligatory pro, and I'm going to say yes, they should. This is going to be a difficult position to argue from, but let's just look at their body of work. They've taken down Foothills Christian,
Who has at one point been the number one team?
one team in San Diego. They beat South Point Catholic, who was just at one time they were a top 3 team in Arizona behind Pinnacle and Shadow Mountain. They just took out Parker, who's ranked ahead of them, and
Parker's been somewhere around 6th all season.
been top 5, 6 team in the city. So you look at those 3 wins. You look at some of their losses. I mean, they had close losses to Mater Dei Catholic, which was an American Division team in the in Torrey Pines Holiday Classic. They lost to Rancho Bernardo, who at one point was laying waste to a lot of people. We were surprised at
Who at that time was in the top 10.
they were a top 10 team. I mean, these aren't bad losses, and they're 14-4 at a time when everyone in the top 5 has at least 5 or 6 losses. So go Eagles.
Tommy, provide us the counter argument to that.
I'll put them at 5. I think the loss of Mater Dei kind of hurts them a little bit. The loss of RB kind of hurts them a little bit now that RB hasn't been with they
leveled off
a little bit. I will say this: the other 2 losses, very good losses. St. Anthony's is a Southern Section team. I know you probably know some of the kids on that team down here in San Diego. Not a lot of people get to see them. Very, very good team. Yeah. One of the better teams in the Southern Section in that league. And then Sierra Canyon obviously is one of the best teams in the country. So.
And I'm going to one more thing jump in about that. They played Sierra Canyon better than any team in that tournament. I mean, they lost to them by I think 38, 39 points, but they didn't get running clocked like everybody else in that tournament, which included St. Augustine. I'd love to see Santa Fe get an opportunity to stay in the open division. Right now, Max Preps has them in the top 4, so they would be an open division team and would host a home game in the playoffs. So,
and I'll give them this. I think at this point they deserve that. I don't think number 1 necessarily. I would put them somewhere in the top 5.
We'll have to find out next week on Monday who actually takes the number 1 spot in that poll. Another team that's been kind of creeping up into the polls, but they are a Division 4 team, so it's in that interesting borderline, and that's Rancho Buena Vista. They're Division 2. Division 2, I apologize. A lot of numbers going through my head. We're talking about other Division 4 teams later. Rancho Buena Vista, are they I'll make the statement of just Rancho Buena Vista is the most slept-on team in San Diego County. You've started to address this in some written articles, Aaron, and I think it's now time for us to just sort of kind of hear both sides of this argument. So, Tommy, we'll start with you on this one. Rancho Buena Vista, yes or no, they are the most slept-on team in San Diego?
I'll say yes. Yeah, and just in this, I'm not saying that they're one of the best teams in the county. I'm saying as far as teams that get overlooked, just because they are so close to those North County schools that everybody talks about all the time. Their 2 losses. Vista Marietta, another Southern Section team. They're all, they're somewhere in the upper tier of the Southern Section, but not quite really there. And then Temecula Valley, kind of similar. They're good teams, but they're not great. The overtime win against Claremont kind of scares me for Rancho Buena Vista. But I mean, they've got some good players. I mean, everyone knows who McLaughlin is, and then Jack Bailey, also a very good player too. So they've got the star power, so to speak. I think they're my favorite for Division II. So I think that yes, they're definitely quote unquote slept on.
Well, I mean, it was as much as. We had Nick Herman on the radio show this week, saying that they had players behind Patrick McLaughlin that were need-to-know type ballers that are having Noah Fields, especially, is having a great season. Aaron, provide us the counter argument, though, that there is just something about them where you're kind of like, we know what's going on here, and they're not being slept on. They're given their adequate respect.
I mean, I think they're given their just due. I mean, they're in the top 15. I think right now they're like just sitting outside the top 10 of the UT poll. I'm not wild about their strength of schedule. You mentioned, Tommy, that double overtime win against Claremont. I mean, Claremont's a sub-500 team in the Southern Section that isn't having a great year. They had to do a favor at the Holiday Classic and filled in the Mayor's Division. So, I mean, it wasn't by choice that they were in the Mayor's Division, but the fact of the matter is they were in the Mayor's Division, and their wins there, overtime win over Sweetwater, a 8-point win over San Diego, a win against a solid Bishops team, and I can't remember their other win, but, playing in the Mayor's Division, which is the lowest division of Torrey Pines Holiday Classic, that's not something that's going to, in terms of like raising the profile of the program, I don't think it does that. I do think that they are definitely a fringe top 10 squad. I think Patrick McLaughlin's having a great year. I think Noah Fields is having a breakout season. I mean, he's been one of the more unheralded players in San Diego this year. But if we're talking about like truly slept on teams, I'll throw out some teams. Valhalla. Really slept on. Now that they've got Jordan Gaines from sit out period, and he's
scoring like
20 points a game. Exactly. I mean, their two guards are.
I would also like to point out that if you would like to know anything about Valhalla, we had them on the radio show. Go hit the link in all of our bios. And
Ben still owns a lot of Gucci apparel, apparently.
Yes, and also we found out that Jordan Gaines speaks about Jordan Gaines in the third person.
Oh, I could definitely see that. I mean, so I'll say them. Not from like any open division perspective. I mean, but San Diego Academy, they're 14-1 this year. They're probably going to win Division 5 a year after getting outclassed in the D5 title game. I'll give them some love. I mean, they're very underrated. San Diego Southwest, we just talked about them. I mean, they're the top team in Division 4. They're extremely underrated.
You want to get a D3 team and just kind of round it out nicely?
Are you kind of angling toward? Well, I did talk about Valhalla. They're a Division 3 team, but I mean,
all right, then we got 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 all time.
Yeah. So I mean, if we're going to talk about a team that hasn't been talked about very much this year, but they're still there, Montgomery. I mean, they're right there again.
If you believe our Instagram DMs, Kyle Perinato for president.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. It's between him and Dominic Sfarda for the best player under 5'8", I think.
No, it's not, because you got Jared Nafaret and Raymond Liu who are right there.
I forgot Jared.
I've made the argument a couple times this season that I think Jaren's the best basketball player in San Diego right now.
No disagreement.
Last question, Marquise Edwards from Mount Miguel. He is currently averaging more points per game than I have scored in my entire life at any point in games. In all of the games. Yes, exactly. With the type of numbers that he's putting up, and Aaron, you can eloquate a little more on those. Best player in the county, all league in the county, like not best player in the county, but should he be a first team all league, CIF, all everything with the numbers that he's putting up? Can you do that from a Mount Miguel type school? Or do you need to be in that open division conversation every single game to be those kinds of players?
I think that some will say that you need to be in the open division or at least Division 1, but I'm going to say no. And here's why. Mount Miguel is 12-5. They're 1-0 in league right now. They had some stumbles early on, but this is a team that only plays 5 players every 5 or 6 players a game. He's averaging 25 and 14 a game. He is dominating. There are stretches of games where he is absolutely the best player on the court, and it's not even close. I've seen him play multiple times this year. I saw him earlier against Bonita Vista where he had, I think, 34 points, and that was after falling on his tailbone and having like a really bad bruise on his back. Came back in and completed the game, and, and just he's putting up video game-like numbers. This kind of reminds me of a few years ago when Mount Miguel had a kid by the name of Izzy Wagner. And Izzy Wagner started off the first 8 games of the season averaging 40 points a game. He hit 8 games over 40 points a game, including 1 game with 50 points a game. That type of production has to mean something if it translates into wins. They are winning, he's producing, he's deserving.
Tommy, make us that counter argument.
I would say it's close, but I think it's just tough when you have so many good players kind of concentrated in those open division teams. It's hard to kind of judge, and there's not a knock against him. It's just it seems like for whatever reason, all the kids, the play club or whatever, end up in the same leagues and the same teams and the same stuff. I mean, you got to discount all the kids from Saints, all the kids from Foothills, all the kids from Parker, all the kids from Country Day, all the kids from Santa Fe Christian, and once you start getting down that list, it becomes just a lot of names, and that'd be the only reason why. But I mean, he's a great player.
Well, and it's an interesting season when we talk so much about parity being frustrating on the team level. It's intriguing on the personal level because
and Mission Bay obviously has one good kid.
Well, yeah, but we the last couple years have had one player in a Leaf, Hands, Cherry, whoever it is, Norris, who is here. Then there is that second tier where you judge them versus that top person. Right now, there is no truly stand out, transcend. Boogie Ellis is very good.
I think you could put Boogie in that category. I mean, I know the other ones are different because they're McDonald's All-Americans and whatnot, but in Boogie, maybe not. But I just think that it's obvious when he's on the court versus some other guys.
Well, fair enough. Maybe we need our own debate segment. But what I'm just trying to say is that with no player leaps and bounds ahead of everybody by which you judge everyone else against, it's hard to really say that there aren't 10 first-team players just in that top 10 teams conversation. Like, there are a lot of really good guys that you can sort of nitpick at. I like what he's doing. I like what he's doing. I like what he's doing. So it can be hard to get that love that you deserve at the Division II or below level. I mean, I know that there's even a lot of shooters. Like, we talked about Kyle Perenata and that, like, he's not in that conversation yet. Montgomery's somewhere around that 10th spot. And Dominic Safari. There's a lot of players out there. AJ is a decent enough shooter that he could work his way into that 5th in the rotation conversation. Like, there's a lot of players here in San Diego.
He's having a good year.
Yeah, he's having a good year. There's a lot of players having a good year, and that's why we enjoy these debate segments. Let us know who you think we might have skipped out on, who you think we're sleeping on.
Give us some jump ball discussions. I mean, we like this. I mean,
yeah, we're gonna transition a little bit back more into that now that we've had sample size. I think the most frustrating thing to sit here at the beginning of a basketball season is to try and extrapolate where people are going, just because you just don't know. And now we have a little bit of a working data set to start talking about. So
to throw out the algorithm this week.
So we're going to be back next week with top 10s and everything on a little bit more regimented schedule. As always, we've got the radio show going on. Aaron is full-time hoops, full-time dad, full-time everything, to the point where I'm almost convinced that there are 2 of you. Like, there's a twin brother situation going on here that you just have doing all of your...
Don't let the government find out.
No, that's too much good looks, man.
That's too...
World wouldn't be ready to handle that. I apologize. I'm wrong on that one. But we'll see you guys sometime early next week. Thank you very much, as always, for watching, and peace out.
Yes, sir.